Now, I was talking to a colleague today at work and we had an interesting chat. And what happened was we began to speak about something called self-determination in relation to countries. And what that means is that the people of a country, in particular the indigenous people of a country, that they have a right to self-determination, that they can decide the fate of the country in terms of demographics, in terms of the direction it goes, demographically speaking. So in other words, as the rulers of the country, you are not allowed to demographically transform the country unless the people have actually given their consent for this. So in other words, you need to have something like a referendum if you decide that you want to bring in loads of people from other countries. You have to ask the people, get their consent. So I was making this point to my friend, and he didn't really buy it. He didn't really get it. Because to be honest, like someone like myself in my workplace, I would say there's very few people around me that are red pilled. That are really aware of what's going on. Now, I don't know everything, of course, but generally that have an awareness that there's another agenda at play, that there's another level of control going on in terms of the people that rule over us, our politicians, our media, bankers, the legal system, etc. The NGOs, all these various global organizations like the EU and the EC, the ECB, the IMF, the World Bank, Amnesty International, Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, all these groups, these all have a lot of power and a lot of control over individual governments, individual countries in Europe and around the world. But I didn't even get to that level of, that's too much, like just in a general chat at lunchtime, you're not going to get into that level of depth. Don't want to scare the guy off. But it just struck me at just how blue pill, just how conditioned so many so many Irish people are. They really are. It's someone like myself. I just come across as like they cannot countenance, they cannot fathom some of the things I talk about when I speak about something like self-determination. Like most people around me, I've never heard that phrase. I don't know what it means. So anyway, I gave my friend this example. I said, let's look at Balladreen. Balladreen in Roscommon, close to the Mayo border. This town has been demographically transformed in particularly the last 15 years or so. Nobody in the town has been asked, are they okay with that? Do they want that? Okay, but it's gone ahead anyway. And the town is now, at last count, in 2016, 42% non-Irish. Okay. Now that is a transformation in anyone's terms. Okay. That was forced on the people. That was foisted on the people. Nobody was asked. Now I asked my friend, do you think that is right? Do you think that is fair? That is just to do that to a small country town? He didn't answer me. There's a surprise. He brought it over to the level of the company we work for. And he said, should I have a right to say what the demographics of the company I work for are? And I said, look, man, that is not a like for like comparison. I don't, I'm employed by the owners of the company. Of course, I've got no say over the demographics of the company, and it doesn't, it doesn't bother me as such. It's kind of, you work with whoever's there, whatever nationality they are. I don't have any bias or prejudice against any individual ethnicity or culture or nationality, but it is this point of self-determination that my friend could not get his head round. He simply saw me as being anti-foreigner in a sense. For him, I guess he's absorbed so much news talk and RTE and the sort of mainstream news media that he now thinks that diversity and multiculturalism is absolutely normal and natural, and this is how it should be. He hasn't thought outside the box. He's got his box there, he's got his acceptable opinions, and he does not go outside that box. So therefore he couldn't we couldn't even entertain the points I was making, you know. And it just really struck me as to, like I said, just how deep the conditioning goes. Like we really, I don't want to black pill anyone here, but we are up against it here. We have a lot of work to do if we're going to if we're really going to wake people up as to what's happening and just how immoral the whole thing is. You know, forced mass immigration on any country. You know, it doesn't have to be European, it could be any country. It's simply wrong. Forcing mass immigration on a country is absolutely wrong. You know, and like I said, my friend could not get his head around this. He couldn't. It was so far outside his frame of reference that he just couldn't countenance. He couldn't really get this idea. And for me, it was quite frustrating. So after a little while, I said, you know, the two of us said, look, let's just knock this in the head. We're not going to agree. You're my friend, I'm your friend. We're not going to fall out over this. I thought I could get him thinking a bit more deeply on this topic, but forget it. A closed book, like most of our compatriots are in this country, unfortunately. But, you know, we just have to keep plugging away. We have to keep trying to wake people up, because if we don't, we're sleepwalking into demographic disaster. You know, something has to be done.